It's weird how similar my person is to yours in that they also represent this ideal time, and also our young girl. Obviously, Hestia is an ageless goddess, but so is mine. So I chose Anne Shirley.
From Anne of Green Gables.
From Anne of Green Gables.
I have a small question to start.
Of course.
Earlier you mentioned Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
Are Little House on the Prairie and Anne of Green Gables not the exact same thing? Because I always just thought that was the same thing.
No.
Those are different stories.
They're completely different stories.
What?
Not written by the same person, not set in the same place.
In my head, it's the same.
Okay. So for anyone listening who maybe doesn't know about Anne Shirley, then you can just picture Little House on the Prairie and all of that.
So Little House on the Prairie is like dusty, sandy.
Yeah, it's more Americana.
Okay, and Anne of Green Gables is set in Prince Edward Island.
Canadiana. I was obsessed with living in Prince Edward Island because of this book, and I obviously never have. But Anne, she represents love, sociability, love of beauty, and optimism, creativity, all of these Solacene principles. So I'm going to read 3 segments from the book, and each time we can discuss the Solaceness of that segment. So the first one is on the topic of imagination and optimism. This morning when I left the asylum, I felt so ashamed because I had to wear this horrid old wincey dress. All the orphans had to wear them, you know. A merchant in Hopetown last winter donated 300 yards of wincey to the asylum. Some people said it was because he couldn't sell it, but I'd rather believe that it was out of the kindness of his heart, wouldn't you? When you got on the train, I felt as if everybody must be looking at me and pitying me. But I just went to work and imagined that I had on the most beautiful pale blue silk dress. Because when you are imagining, you might as well imagine something worthwhile. And a big hat, all flowers and nodding plumes, and a gold watch, and kid gloves and boots. I felt cheered up right away, and I enjoyed my trip to the island with all my might.
Solacene.
Solacene.
I liked there were 2 kind of I'd rather believes, and one was I'd rather believe he donated these out of the kindness of his heart rather than because he couldn't sell them, and the other was I'd rather believe that I was wearing this lovely dress and everyone was admiring me rather than kind of looking down on me. I like the former the most because I think it's the least common today, where people, so much of when you talk to people and small talk is just let's get together and assume the worst of everybody. Oh, why is she wearing that? What's going on in their house? Or, why is I don't know much about him, but he looks X or he seems Y.
Yeah, and we always say if a rich person is making a donation, it's probably just for a tax write-off.
Mm-hmm. Basically embrace naivety. And is it one of those stories where the innocent child goes around and kind of makes the grouchy adults feel young again?
Is it like she basically sprinkles fairy dust.
Okay,
because
fairy dust.
as we know, the 2 people who adopted her, they were sick. They were no longer able to farm, but then they obviously managed to do it for another 10 years.
So it's a little bit Spirited Away, a little bit Wizard of Ozzy, and maybe a lot Little House on the Prairie, whatever that is.
Yeah, for sure. I think another interesting thing about Anne is that her personality swings from what she calls the depths of despair, between the depths of despair and this really lovely optimism. And she just feels things so fully, because often when she's in the depths of despair, it's like she's tripped and scraped her knee or someone called her a name and she's like, oh, woe is me. But she feels everything so fully, and it's contagious to the reader and also to the characters in the book of letting yourself do that, because we often numb ourselves to the good and the bad in a way of trying to be more stoic, but a misrepresentation of what stoicism is, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, so if you are numbing yourself, just try embracing the feelings and feeling them fully, and then your reactions, that's how stoicism works, is the reactions are important.
Solacene recommends emotion. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been recently, much to your displeasure, trying to reshape my laugh into something more hearty.
Oh.
But I think that would be a good idea. If more people, instead of going hee, instead, if you had to, if you see how it makes other people laugh too.
Yeah, it's true.
There's something old-fashioned about that. I think it's nice. He has a booming laugh.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, one more thing about this quote before I move on to the next one is I liked how it's just such a Solacene thing of being oh, this road is gross. I mean, when I say soul scene, I mean an Aaron and Alicia thing.
Yeah.
Of instead of being like, this is actually gross, the amount of cars here, we're just like, imagine if there were trees and beautiful sidewalks and birds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps you survive.
It's one of the many, many, many reasons I don't like the idea of augmented reality, because then you could be walking around a kind of ugly street, but have it set so that you can see wonderful things, or instead of your window outside, maybe, like in the Jetsons or any kind of sci-fi future, you can make it look like you're in Honolulu. But that misses the point entirely.
Yeah. So this next section is when Anne is arriving on the island, and as I said, the roads are made of, like, everything there is red. All the soil is red. Well, that is one of the things to find out sometime. Isn't it splendid to think of all the things there are to find out about? It just makes me feel glad to be alive. It's such an interesting world. It wouldn't be half so interesting if we knew all about everything, would it? There'd be no scope for imagination then, would there? And I think there would be no scope for imagination is my favorite Anne of Green Gables line, and probably the most impactful, because often we feel, well, everything's been explored, everything's been invented. I remember when I was a kid, I used to always invent these solutions to things. Even, like, specifically, I remember, baby gates?
Yes.
I'd always have these inventions for better baby gates that, like, young kids, because it's like, they're to stop the babies, like the small babies, from falling down the stairs.
Yeah.
They're like, but the 6-year-olds still can't reach. So I'd always have these ideas for, like, improved baby gates. And I'd tell my dad all excitedly, and he's like, oh, that probably was already invented. And I remember every day, this is something I haven't thought about in a long time until now, I'd wake up and basically run through in my head this is so dark, I didn't even realize this until now, but this motto of, like, there's probably someone else in the world wearing the exact same outfit as you are today, so, like, you're not unique. And I do this, like, every day as a way to, like, ground myself in reality, not intentionally. I mean, I was pretty little, but I'm just remembering that was basically the first thing I'd always think when I'd wake up, of, like...
Sounds more like some kind of ritual killing of the spirit.
Yeah, I guess I did it to myself.
You are nothing. Every day I woke up and looked in my mirror and said it to myself, you're worth nothing.
So I guess I've been trying to reprogram that for a few years. But yeah, having scope for the imagination. Feeding yourself things that inspire imagination, asking questions, even if they're silly questions. Teachers used to be like, there's no silly questions, so ask them. You're not stupid for not knowing why the sand is red. You're just curious. And I'm sure someone does know the answer, but you have to find out the information somehow. I
used to feel that every time I would drive, not to Prince Edward Island, but even in the part of Nova Scotia that's close to Prince Edward Island, the roads are red. And we'd always get really excited because it means we were kind of close to where we were going, but also it's just a weird difference.
It is weird.
I even feel that way today when we use beets. Look how red it is.
I know.
Colors.
Just nature's amazing. Ask questions, be curious, and
eat beets.
Be sociable as well. Because that's what I really like about Anne. She has, as you were saying, the ability to sprinkle fairy dust onto everyone, and it's just...
Yeah, you said that, but...
Oh, sorry. It sounds like something you would say. You're usually the one talking about fairies. Just be more sociable. Finally, be a lover of beautiful things. And not just, like, collecting them, taking pictures of them. Love them like a newborn child. So I'll read one more quote to finish this off and we can talk about it. So this passage takes place after Anne just drove through this promenade with these really beautiful trees. The sun was setting, the sky was purplish, and apparently for the first time on the ride back from the train station, she goes quiet for like 3 miles. She's silent, she's sitting there dumbfounded. And then Matthew asks her, oh, that's pretty, isn't it? And then she says, pretty? Oh, pretty doesn't seem the right word to use, nor beautiful either. They don't go far enough. Oh, it was wonderful, wonderful. It's the first thing I ever saw that couldn't be improved upon by imagination. It just satisfied me here. She put her hand on her breast. It made a queer, funny ache, and yet it was a pleasant ache. Did you ever have an ache like that, Mr. Cuthbert? Well, now I just can't recollect that I ever had. I have it lots of times, whenever I see anything royally beautiful. But they shouldn't call that lovely place the Avenue. There's no meeting in a name like that. They should call it, let me see, the White Way of Delight. Isn't that a nice imaginative name? I just think it's wonderful. She was just so struck by the beauty. She's silent for the whole ride, and then she goes off on this tangent and saying it can't be improved on by the imagination, which I love. But then another thing I really love about Anne is that she gives everything names. So she's like, oh, the avenue, ew, like let's give it a beautiful name. And she does this throughout the rest of the book and the rest of her life.